welcome to another episode of Speak Your Mind. Today we have myself, Naomi, and we have
Itanu
and Patrick.
Yeah, so today is just going to be a chilled vibe where we're going to just discuss our transition from our previous lifestyles, if so to speak. And we just want to talk about what it is to be a Christian for anybody that's out there struggling and wants a better understanding, because I know some people might be going through some struggles within themselves, but they don't really have anywhere to look up to. So it's just we just want to be here and give you like a raw content on what it was for us, and hopefully that can help you. So yeah, like I said before, the topic is what it is to be a Christian. And before we dive into that, I was hoping my guests here could actually just give me like a little breakdown of the basically like a little background of the Christian lifestyle and how it was for them for like in a general context. And we'll start with it today.
So I've always been going to church from a young age. Originally, both of my parents were Muslim. My mum converted and we started going to church with her. The first church we went to was more of like a traditional church, so it was a white garment, predominantly people from Nigeria, and that's where it was found. Then we moved on to go Pentecostal, but my idea of church was very misconstrued. Like, I didn't understand anything. It was just something I went to on a Sunday. So I classed myself as a Christian then because I was a churchgoer. Continued going to church, and then when I attended university, I stopped going because there were just things that were going on in my life. And then I started coming to Potter's house, and I realised that, okay, being a Christian doesn't mean you're just a church attendee, but you actually have meaningful relationships with people, and you actually give your life to Christ. Things change, there's a transformation. Then when I learned of that, I started actually actively doing and implementing those things in my life.
Yeah, so I guess that transition for you, because from maybe you didn't go through that where you were a Muslim at the beginning, but transition in the lifestyle for your parents that then influenced you must have been very big.
Yeah, it was. I, like, looking back on it, I even think that they were still struggling because we used to church hop all the time. We never stayed in a church longer than 3-5 years. It was always, once something happened, we moved, or because we moved house, we moved church. So I was never able to build meaningful relationships with people within the church, and there was like different doctrines. It was very confusing because I think they were also confused. And it's obviously only until now that I realised that being in the midst and staying within a church helps you, because you learn about people even when they hurt you or you have fun or whatever. It's building your character to love as Jesus loved.
Yes.
And obviously I know that now, but
yeah, that's great.
yeah.
So we'll move on to Patrick. You can give us your backstory.
All right, okay. Thank you very much. I was born in church. So saying literally born, like, if you know what I mean, yeah. So, like back home, how in villages, they don't have hospitals and stuff. So, like, when women would give birth, they usually, take them to churches, like church houses and stuff. So I think that's what happened with me. Kind of in that way. So yeah. So saying in a matter of saying, I was born in church. So imagine being born in church. You're definitely gonna grow up in church, right? Yeah. So I used to go to church when I was young, Sunday school. And then from Sunday school, you would transition into like a kids choir in church and stuff. Like the Congolese choir churches, they've got like 5 choirs. So 5 choirs for like teenagers, choir for toddlers, choir for like older teenagers and stuff. Yeah. So I kind of my whole life I always coming from this going to the next one. So but of course, growing up, you just go in, but you don't know exactly what you're doing. It's just like, because that's how I was born. This is what I was born into. So I was like just following it as a lifestyle, as just something that I have to do. But remember the first time I started thinking about it is when when we moved into the UK. I think that was about 16, 17. As everyone, when you come into Europe, or when you go out of Africa, you've got all these plans of things that you're gonna do, and they don't definitely involve God. They don't. I didn't. I never thought I'll be, the person I am today. If I had followed the plans that I had, but again, so when I came, started doing, I went college, having friends from, different cultures. I started, exposing myself to different beliefs, different kind of behaviors and stuff. But again, because my family, they're all Christian, we all grew up in church. When we came here, so my mom, my brothers and my sisters, we all joined the church. So I was like, okay, so what do I do now? Because I had all these plans. They didn't involve going to church or doing anything in church. So I was, okay, so then for, a few weeks after we joined the church, I find myself doing something in church already. So I was like, okay, so this is not the plan that I had. But of course, that's God. That's God doing his things. With all this going on, I wanted to carry on with the plans that I had, but God had a different calling, different idea. So it was quite hard to choose when you've been given a choice. Either you do this for God, or either you go and do the stuff that you had in mind. So that was quite a battle. I had to sit down. It took me quite a while to kind of calm down and just sit down and say, what, I've got all these plans that I was gonna do, but God had called me to do this. I was actually still young. Yeah, and then I just turned and started, doing things in church.
Yeah. So, because you mentioned about moving.
Yeah.
So from what I'm hearing, you moved quite a lot.
Yeah, we did.
So where were you born?
I was born in Congo.
So you're born in Congo.
Yeah.
From there, where did you go?
So Congo, first of all, so I was born late 90s. So late 90s in Congo, we had a lot of civil war going on. So we were, coming from Congo to Burundi. So in refugee camps and stuff, but we wouldn't stay there for 2 months. We would stay there for 2 months. Then we'll go back in Congo after when the war is over. But we're there for 2 more months, and then there's something that's going on, and we'll go back in Burundi. So it was going back and forth until we actually, settled down in Burundi. We lived there for 10 years, and then we came here. Yeah, so that was pretty much that's my life. Yeah, that's me. In terms of Christianity side of it, it actually hard as well. When you move, here we've got this church with pastor has taught us the belief that we ought to have, or the Christianity, the Christian that we ought to be. But again, when you move, you got to a different church. They've got different doctrines.
Yeah.
Probably things that you were taught as a child. You're starting to get exposed into different beliefs, and it just messes up your mind. You end up leaving everything, and it was pretty hard.
Yeah, surprisingly, though I am Nigerian, my experience was way different from yours.
Yeah.
My experience is even more similar to Patrick's experience, because I was obviously born in Nigeria, born in church as well. Not definitely. I was born in
Not literally.
I was born in a hospital, but my mom was already involved. At the time, she was the choir mistress, and we used to go to church literally every other day. So I was always involved, always doing things in church, but obviously I was young and I couldn't do too much at the time. And before we then left Nigeria, my mom was already ordained as a deaconess.
Right.
So we had a different kind of doctrine over there. But I was already in church. And in this period, whilst we're getting ready to then travel over to Italy, my dad was getting saved in Italy. So life was changing. And by the time I got here, my dad was already a pastor. Well, he was a deacon first, and then he became a pastor. But I was in church regardless, tirelessly. So there's nothing else I know but church. So it was an experience where I felt like, as much as it was great for me, I felt it was choking because I didn't know anything else. So that's when I then felt like, okay, what would it be to do something different? Like what, like, am I going to be this church girl forever? That's when you start thinking, because that's when I started looking for different ways to kind of quench the appetite I had to know more. And obviously we know how that goes. Didn't always go right. End of tumbling sometimes, but yeah. So that's my experience. It's just something that I felt like was forced on me, but even when I then tried something different, I couldn't see anything better. Yeah. So moving on to our next question, and I'm going to start again with Itinu. So the question that I have, and this is a question that I feel like is probably the key for people, because when someone is looking from the outside and they're not really a Christian yet, or they're trying to navigate themselves around this life, they don't really have answers, and they probably think, oh, maybe there needs to be like a drastic change in my life before I actually say, you know what, I want to live right and I want to live for God. So this question is, how was your transition from your previous lifestyle to what it is now? Because I'm sure it's very different.
Oh boy. So unlike you guys, because you guys were literally born in church, I wasn't. We went to church, we were just churchgoers. So I had the mentality of being lukewarm. When I say lukewarm, I mean like I was just going to church, but then on a Monday through Saturday, I was just living what you could consider a normal life, or what I thought was. So when I started to come to church, like actually actively wanting to change my life, when I made that decision, a lot of things were highlighted to me, and things that I just thought was normal were actually wrong. But it was really hard. The transition was really hard because I didn't want to change. I was very comfortable with where I was at, and I was trying to, I guess, cut corners in a sense. Like I just didn't want to make the drastic change. I thought, okay, I can do this if I just don't do this. Do you get what I mean? When it just wasn't working like that, because then I'll just end up doing what I wasn't meant to do anyways. One of the challenging things were at first it was the obvious things. So let's say drinking, smoking, and just being in wrong relationships. Those were the obvious things, and like other people in church, it took me a bit longer because I was stubborn and I didn't want to change. I couldn't comprehend how everyone I knew was doing it the way I was doing it. So how am I meant to succeed if I do it this way? And even though people around me in church were like, oh yeah, if you do it this way, it's going to turn out for better, I was scared to make the jump. But then it comes to a point when you're just like, okay, what I'm doing is not bringing good results. I'm not happy in my relationships. I don't want to be dependent on just drinking and smoking to fill the void of sadness. I actually genuinely want to be happy and sober. And I didn't want to feel that whole thing of I needed something to feel happy. I just wanted to have God and be okay. So eventually I had to make the decision. So that was the hard transition, but then there was even a much harder one, which was the internal. So like my character, my mentality, what I was saying to myself that actually produced the actions. And then I had to actually now deal with the internal things, and I think that's what was hard, like just dealing with my pride, dealing with the way I spoke to people, the way I loved myself, my mentality. That was now, I think, the hardest transition. And it's a transition. When people say transition, you kind of feel like, oh, there must be an end date. You must have now gotten it all. You must have passed every test and you're fully transformed. You are, but every day is like you're always tested and you're still transformed. You're being renewed like every day in a sense.
Yes.
So yeah, that's what I found to be and still be quite difficult.
It's hard, you know.
It's hard in these streets.
Yeah, Patrick.
Okay, so all right. Okay, so for me, right. Okay, so as I said, I grew up in church, grew up around my whole family. We were saved. We were. I was Christian. I don't know about them, but I was a Christian, but I wasn't a born again Christian or a saved Christian or anything. One thing I remember, because when I did my high school, I was in a boarding school. All boys boarding school, yeah. So, and like being a teenager, you get to in that phases where you start experimenting with different stuff. There was a phase of like things changing in your body. There was a phase of experimenting with sexual stuff. But when you get into that phases and stuff, yeah. So you find yourself hanging out with similar people, and one thing that was hard was for me, okay, so because I was going to church every Sunday, I was involved in church things, like I was in choir and doing other stuff in church. And the one thing I was worried about was, okay, so if I get serious with God, where am I gonna do with my friends outside? It's like, okay, so I've got church, but I've got home, I've got like my friends outside of church. So these are my friends. In church, I don't have anyone. It's just I got there because they're serious. Yeah, it's like the religious stuff. Yeah, I'm like, okay, so I don't need this. I want to focus on this. So it was for me. First of all, before I got serious, that was the only thing holding me back. Was saying, okay, so if I leave my friends, if I get saved, they're going to forsake me. They will say, you know what, Patrick, you are a Christian now. Yeah, but I remember when then I got serious with God, it was a similar thing. I was like, okay, so I'm here, I'm into the UK, I've got new friends, I've known them for quite like few months. And then God started speaking to me, do this, go into this. This is what I want you to do. And then I was like, okay, so but again, I think one thing that really kind of challenged me was in church, the church that I was going to at the time, they didn't have like, I wouldn't say they didn't have a way of mentoring someone like me, someone who's starting out fresh, someone who's still young, still experimenting with different stuff. So I was like, okay, so if I leave my friends outside, even though we do bad stuff, but still we do it together. It's us. But if I leave them and go to church, I don't have anyone there. I don't probably speak to anyone intimately the way I would want to speak to like a friend of or someone. So that was something really that kind of hit me hard. It was that's the hardest decision that I got to like take and think about. It's a decision, and once you've got to a decision, either you go here or you go there. And I thank God I made the right decision. But again, when I made that decision, things started changing in church. So people started coming to church, people that, that were older than me, that were mature than me, and we kind of started hanging out with them, learning from them, and it's just things started going the right way. But they all happened after I've made a decision to do this. But again, apart from that, it's all the other stuff, innit? Let's just leave it there. Let's just
Next comment.
Yeah, my one was a bit drastic but slow. It's weird because obviously, like I said before, being in church my entire life, I wouldn't say I was saved because I feel like being saved is not being born into a Christian family, as we all know. So when I then made the conscious decision, which I think I've made before, I know I had, because there was one time I was really properly saved back in my parents' church, and I got baptized and everything, went to live right. But I just kept having temptation, and it's a temptation you get as a teenager where you just want to be part of what everybody's doing. But moved to Bolton strictly to run away from family. That was the aim for Bolton, or anywhere else, rather. Anywhere was going to do it. So I just wanted to run away from family, And I came to Bolton and I knew nobody here. So in my head, I'm like, this is why I can really do it. I can literally get away with murder in Bolton. And I did it, and still at the same time, I kept finding myself getting roped back into it. I was still going to church regardless. I had to find a church. In my head, I was like, as long as I'm going to church, I'm not doing too bad. So I think there was one time, one of our brothers in church just said, you know what, guys, what are you doing on Sunday? We then came to church. Came with Itinu and a bunch of other guys, and I wasn't expecting anything from it because I've been going to another church. Nothing has happened. It's just like another vibe in it. It's just another Sunday. So I go to church, and then this sermon was just being preached. I think it was Boys to Men. Yeah. I was like, wow, this is a bit different, yet similar.
Yeah.
Because I felt like it reminded me of home, but it was what I needed in my season. Yes. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, this is doing it, but I'm not ready to let go yet. So my transition from that 14th of February 2016 lingered until the end of the year, December. Mind you, in that year that I even got saved, I did the things I never thought I would be capable of doing. So things that in my head I never thought that Naomi, a human being that was born and brought up in church, would ever do. So I feel like sometimes we do feel like being saved means that your lifestyle changes immediately. Yeah. The year that I was saved, which was February 2016, ended up being the year I committed the worst sins in my eyes in my life. Honestly. And that lingered from the beginning of February till the end of 2016. So I was like, okay, I'm doing this. I said I'm going to stop, I'm going to change, I'm going to do this. But nothing is really changing. Come December now, I'm thinking to myself, do you really want to carry this up again till like 2017 and going forward and so? And mind you, that decision was made on the 15th of, just after Christmas, December, because I went back home for Christmas. And it was made, I think, just after Christmas. And then crossover night comes. Crossover night is when we go to church, New Year's Eve, and we all cross over to the next year together. So I was in Italy, crossover night in Italy with my family. And something just spoke to me, and I was like, I feel like I can't do this anymore. Mind you, I was only 21, and I was like, nah. In my head, I still had a few years in me to actually still enjoy life and do stuff. But I literally sat there and we're praying because we have this session where we just pray and then get ready and prep for the next year when it's time to cross over. And it wasn't even like a deep prayer, like, oh my gosh, I fasted for this thing to get out of me. I just said, yeah, this year is going to be different, and I'm doing it now. This is why I said to myself, I am doing it now. And that was it. And prior to that, there was this person that I was talking to, and when I got back to Bolton, I was like, nah. I was like, no. I don't even want to try. Like, that was it. No, I didn't even talk to the person anymore. That was just it. And that was when the person then told me, said, you got bipolar. I think you just act like you're just, like 1 second you're fine, the next second you're different. That's when I realized that it was a drastic change. But it was still slow. It was a long time coming. Yeah. But when it happened, it was like there was no going back. There was no looking back. And ever since then, it's been, I would love to say uphill. I would literally love to say uphill, but that's really been it. And the transition was, because I'm glad I deal with friends, because if I didn't have friends, I think it would have been boring, and I probably wouldn't have lasted. But because we're all together and we're all getting saved that same period, it made it easy because we could all see how we're suffering. Like Etino said, some of us were catching it. She thinks that we were catching it. But
that's what it looked like. Because we were all dealing with it, even though we were together, it's a vulnerable place in life. So even though me and you were close, there's certain things she didn't know that I was dealing with, vice versa. Because when God is dealing with those things, it's so personal. Like, it's things that nobody knows about but you. And it's like, when are you going to stop?
Yeah.
When are you going to get over this habit of a cycle? And then you get like, I don't know, when you come into church, you're thinking, oh, I did that thing again. Like,
exactly.
And no one knows it because you don't want anybody to know. It's your own little thing. So, yeah, in my eyes, as long as they were still attending the church, they were still all right, do you know what I mean? But everyone was going through their own thing personally, so.
Yeah, that's it, guys. Wow. Oh, wow. So that would bring me basically to my next question. So, looking back at life, what would you tell your younger self that is struggling with the spiritual life? Obviously, now I think we're all going to have to go back to like 6 years ago. Yeah. It's not that 6.
I'm a bit older.
Yeah, but yeah. Okay, when it's 10. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So when we're all like struggling with our spirituality and we didn't know what to do, so you're going to have to tell me, what would you say to your younger self then, and then what would you say to your future self, hoping that we stay connected in Christ.
What I would say to my younger self would be that what you think is big now is so small in God's eyes, and you will overcome it. What I would say to my future self is, it's a bit hard, isn't it? Because I'm in the present. I don't really know because I'm not really in the
maybe what you would then say to your future self is like an advice, like probably.
Okay, advice. Okay, you know what you've been through. You're still gonna be okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess I'll give myself the encouragement because I don't know what will happen in the future.
That's true. Yeah.
But whatever God has brought you through in the past, He will surely do it now and years to come. Yeah.
All right. Okay. What I would tell to my younger self, we gonna be all right. Yeah. It's just like, we're gonna be alright. Okay. We're gonna be alright. Really, it's just what I wish. The only thing I wish I had known is that, like, whenever you make a certain decision, you attract like people that have made kind of same decision in a way. So if I had known that, okay, so if I make a decision to like be serious in God, I would have met people that but for my future self, and this video is actually going to be on YouTube, so I'll probably watch it 5-6 years to come now. Yo, Patrick, listen, just stick on your things. God, actually coming here, I was thinking, why, when we get saved, we said, okay, so we being saved, I'm a Christian now. But I was just thinking, okay, so we are born, but again, we run away from God. That means whenever we get saved, we're actually coming back to the the source. It's like, okay, this is what we're meant to be. So just stick to who you're meant to be, bro.
Yeah.
We'll be alright. Yeah.
What about you?
For me, because I'm just thinking about literally what brought me here, and I would have never thought this would have happened like 7 years ago. Because I came here for strictly uni, and then obviously I moved somewhere else, probably back to London, and just continue life over there. But I had no intention of staying in Bolton, but it was the way everything then changed. And like Patrick said, when you do things for God, you attract people that want to do the same. So I then came here, my family started moving here, and mind you, these are people that were already, no one wouldn't say their lifestyle was the best, but the moment they leave here, they just want to do things. They look at me and they're like, I want to go to church too. I want to go to church too. If you're going to church, please let me know, and stuff like that. And I'm like, I never thought this could be, or this would be my path, or this would be my future. But back then, when things were going on and I just wanted to run away, I think what I would have told myself is, it's not that serious. At the time, it wasn't that serious, and the grass is not always greener on the other side, because I wanted to experience a different kind of lifestyle, but it really wasn't worth it. And then to my future self, I would say, if I ever get to look back at what I've done, I don't want to ever think that I have made mistakes. I want to consider them lessons and ways to improve and get better.
Yeah.
So, to my future self, consider everything a lesson. That's it.
Cute.
So, yeah, thank you guys for coming or watching this episode of Speak Your Mind. And it was really great talking to you, and I hope this was very helpful to everybody.
Yeah.
And before we go, I'll just see if there's anybody want to say something, have anything they want to say.
Well, I don't know if the comment section is open, but if it is, drop down your thoughts or the experience that you faced as well as a Christian or transitioning into Christianity. You know, let's have these talks. And if you've got questions actually for the next episode,
Give us
drop it
ideas.
down. And if the comment section is not open, there's actually, if you scroll down, there's like details of how you can get in touch with us. There's an email, phone, and there's the website as well. Yeah, get in touch when I hear from you. All right.
See you soon.
See you soon. Bye.